to the world-famous Jiggy Jaguar radio program.
Raw and uncut, Jiggy Jag, you know how you do it. You know what I'm saying? Keeping it all the way live.
Broadcasting live from Hutchinson, Kansas.
Well, I'm sitting here with a linguist. I had no idea. I didn't know you were, but I didn't know that you were a wordsmith.
Maybe.
Call Jiggy right now. 267-22-JIGGY.
Hey, Jiggy, what's happening, man? Reminds me of that,
Chatted 7 months ago. I love that.
It's a great name.
Chatted with us 7 months ago.
I'm Mike Massey.
I love this.
You can catch me on Jiggy Jag TV and see if you
There we are. Maybe.
Jiggy Jaguar.
I never knew what freedom was until I saw you lose yours.
Okay. I've got papers. I've got shenanigans. I got things in my way. I got music blaring in my ear. We're having a hell of a day here on the world famous Jiggy Jaguar radio broadcast. I guess I should have kept the damn music going. That's what I probably should have done. Ring the group. We're going to go to Skype, so that means we're going to ring the group. We're going to ring the group, which is always good. Let's always ring the group. I always love that about Skype. And I believe Don Mazzella is with us. Don, there he is.
Yeah. How you doing?
And there's Ken. And I think
guys.
Al Rizzoli is going to come in from his undisclosed location. Or as I always like to joke, he's from parts unknown, the hometown of former pro wrestler, The Ultimate Warrior. We've got...
Well, I like your shirt, Jiggy. You got the Hawaii again?
Yes, I've got the Hawaiian shirts on today. I had to have the Hawaiian shirt on today. Although I don't have as cool of a background as Ken does. It looks like he's coming from a bunker somewhere.
That's pretty much it.
That is...
Bunker outside of San Francisco.
That is awesome. So we have got a great guest with us today. As Alex Trebek used to refer to people, he's our returning champion. Ken LaCorte is with us here in our program. And Ken, you have got an incredible background, just amazing stuff. Founder of LaCorte News. He is also... he headed the editorial team at FoxNews.com, and he was a senior executive at the Fox News channel from 98 to 2016, and he joins us today here on our big broadcast. Ken, welcome to the program. How are you, sir?
Very good, very good. Thank you for having me.
So let's talk here a little bit about this this defense secretary who basically turned on Trump. I look at the liberal media and the progressive media, and oh my God, it's like they're having a parade with this. Is this a big story or not, Ken?
You know, I mean, look, it is a story in the way that I've never seen a president have this many former people who worked for him or did work at him sniping at him. I mean, look, he's got a little bit of a he is the way that he operates is an unusual way for Washington and an unusual way for these longtime military, political, all of those types. And so you've seen a lot of turnover. On the other hand, the press will get any ember that they can make out of anything that is wrong in that White House. And well, look, there's hair on the rug. We never had hair on the rug before, and of course the
when Obama was here, we didn't have hair on the rug.
Yeah, to become you want to become popular in America, go work for Trump for 6 months and then attack him. I mean, that is the way that the national media, or heck, even your wife can work for him, and you can go dump on him, and that is the way that the so-called mainstream media will turn you into a celebrity, and that's what we're seeing.
Can I jump in here?
Yes, go, Don.
Just a question. If he's so bad, why do people want to go work for him? You know what I mean?
I mean, come on. I mean, that's a pretty easy answer. It's because it's working for the White House. I mean, being a whatever. I mean, that's a pretty cool positioning. But we've had a lot of guys go in and out of there. I'm not saying that his management style is bad, because I think proof in the pudding is I think he's doing a good job as president. But I don't think I've ever seen this many people, being fired or what. I mean, look, the guy hired Omarosa. All right, let's get let's at least call spade a spade here. You bring Omarosa into the White House and you expect there not to be problems. Of course, you're going to have security taking this nut job out soon. So, but look, by and large, he does a lot of crazy things that work. I mean, I don't think you should generally have presidents tweeting out how fat a unstable dictator is. That's generally not a good thing, but on the other hand, it kind of worked. So you gotta nod to that.
But Ken, if you look at it, his cabinet has remained fairly stable. If you look at the health, education, and welfare, etc. I've always said that with him, the media concentrates on him while his people carry out his agenda. And if you look at it, they're doing a pretty good job of carrying out his agenda.
Look, I think this is, all of his unorthodox, I guess we can say, things aside, I don't recall a president actually doing as much things like this that he actually said he was going to do before he became president. Which is half the reason why half the people there hate him, because it's like, we didn't believe you when you said you were going to do that. I actually think he's done a lot of things on his agenda and move forward on that. So, but look, this is the Trump that we all have to live with. You can either choose to be completely in and defend everything he does, and he didn't lie about that or this and that, or you can say, look, we've got an oddball president who is doing some great things, and how do you reconcile that as a human being?
Well, that's fair. But if you look at it, if you go back, as I did recently, look at the newspapers for Andrew Jackson, for instance. And you look at what the newspaper said about what Jackson was doing, which was a departure from the presidents before him. And you look at some of the things, and the New York Times, it's really a shame what's happened to the New York Times. I swear, if Trump said the sky was blue, they'd come out and say it was pink. They really gotten, but if you look at what the newspapers did at the time of Jackson, and then again at the time of Lincoln, and then you look at today, you see some awful big parallel. What do you say to that?
Well, look, the news media has iterated several times in American history, and the news media that we grew up with was left of center, was biased, but didn't make shit up. I mean, they had some amount they had a decent amount of integrity about trying to offer in truth, trying to offer in balance, trying to do all of those things. I mean, look, when I came in with Fox and we were launching a brand new thing, we did it as an antidote to what we saw and what we knew was liberal cable channels. But it was a different world even 10 years ago or 5 years ago. I mean, both for Fox and CNN. I mean, we would talk about stories that they wouldn't, we would cover stories that they wouldn't cover. But I always told my reporters, it's like, go out there and give both sides their best shot. We're doing something about a squirrel that's stopping a real estate development. Talk to the real estate people and talk to the pro squirrel people and give them both their best shot. And now that's not how it works, I think, on either side of it now. I mean, I don't believe that if you turned foxnews.com over to the RNC, or if you turned the CNN.com over to the DNC, that either one of those two products would change that much. I think that they are both spinning things to their side, and we are seeing a change of the media that was really, I think, more as economically driven as it was political driven. And we've seen that happen radically over about the last 7 to 10 years. And it's almost at an increasing speed where you literally can't trust the New York Times. I never would have said that even 3 years ago. I never would have said they're not making up facts, but by omitting facts and by playing up certain things that they are creating lies for you. The analysis that I like to say is if Fox News came out and said Pete Buttigieg gave a speech to gay people while he was wearing his underwear. Okay, well, Pete Buttigieg probably gave a lot of speeches to gay people wearing his underwear. And just the fact that he was wearing a suit and a tie and shoes, and there were straight people in the audience as well, that's a factually true statement. I'd hope. It just leads you to a lie, and we're seeing that 24/7 now. And I don't think you can get a fair look at anything unless you either A, find someone that you like, who you trust his or her judgment, and B, to go to a number of sources. I mean, I do go to the liberal sources just to see what's going on, and then I have to fact check them by the conservative sources to see, and because they're all kind of playing that game.
Yeah, but Ken, you're right, but and it's really scary. If you go and look at a story that is covered by the three, CNN, MSNBC, and Fox, it's like you're in three different worlds.
Yeah, look, today.
Yep.
So, we've got Antifa-like guys taking over a six-block square of Seattle. Fox is going it heavily. It is literally not mentioned on the New York Times. And CNN had two stories. If you hit the word Seattle, one was the mayor telling Trump to go back to his bunker. Okay, whatever. That's what political opponents do.
Yes.
The second was of them debunking it, saying, well, the conservative media is saying that they took over a large part of the city, and that's not true. So it's like now we're defining how many, whether protesters forcibly and with often at gunpoint taking over part of a city are large or not large. And then there's the obvious, which you can always do. Could you imagine if some armed conservatives took over part of any city in America and had our own warlord type of guy doing this, that we forced the police to leave a precinct and not come back, although they came back later a few hours ago? Could you imagine what the media would be doing if three of us were holding down part of Minneapolis as our own, 5 blocks of Minneapolis? They would lose their frickin' minds. Now what are they doing? They're literally defending it, saying, well, it's not that many blocks. It's crazy.
Well, and they would lose their mind, especially with me wearing this shirt. But
And let me
go ahead,
a
Don.
little further. But it seems, even given that, if Fox's ratings are that much higher than CNN and MSNBC, why is it that we have a fear that Trump will not win? Because people choose their media by their preference.
Look, the numbers are about split even because there's MSNBC and CNN on one side, and there's just Fox News on the other side. OAN and the others, they don't count. So if you look at the cable news audience, which I could also argue is a little older and so it might skew a little conservative, the cable news audience is about split up between Fox News and the other guys, which is a great position for Fox to be in. It's like, think if you had 5 restaurants in a city that half the city liked hot dogs, the other half like hamburgers, and you were the only one selling hamburgers. That's Fox's position right now, which is solid and a good business for them.
Yeah, unfortunately though, it doesn't bode well for America, because if we are split like it seems, one side or the other may attempt to dictate down the road, and we would lose our democracy, in my view.
Well, I mean, look, we've always been divided. It's certainly an angrier division right now, and we've been helped by a political structure that has built-in checks and balances built into that as much as possible. I don't think what you're saying is impossible, but that's why we have a Senate that's elected only a third of a time. That's why a president has certain powers and not other powers. That's why, and we've seen even under Trump, as we do under most presidents, that he lost a lot of seats in his party. He went in holding 2 houses of Congress with his party, and he's got 1 now, and that's just because Americans have a tendency to. Everybody bitches about the boss, right? Americans have a tendency on off-year elections to give the opposition party there. So it's always a fear. Look, I've got a lot of fears about our democracy. And my biggest thing that I've been beating the horn on is this conversation we're having right now isn't something that the average person necessarily. A lot of Republicans are figuring out that the media is what they're doing, but most people still think that they're the referees. And that's what's changed, and that's what's dangerous. Is we expect the liberal mayor of Seattle to bitch about President Trump, and we expect Trump to bitch about her. What we don't expect is to have the so-called media, who are supposed to be the referees in this or the judges in this, and have operated that way during our entire lives, just complete partisan, and that's what we've got.
Yeah, that's my worry, because if you look traditionally, this country has always been a third of one party, a third of another, and a third of for want of a better word, the center, the people who kind of go one way or the other. And it seems to me that we're rapidly dividing ourselves to the point where A, we have gridlock, or B, we have someone trying to say, well, fix the Supreme Court. I mean, defund the police. These are all radical ideas that don't deserve mention. The last time we talked about the Supreme Court was under Roosevelt.
And it hurt him, and it was seen as an overreach. Look, I think that the thing that conservatives need to worry about the most is that 90% of the national media is actively acting as arms of the Democratic Party.
Yes.
And even worse in a moving forward thing is the censorship that they're now bringing in as part of their strategy, which we're seeing increasing on a daily basis. And as we move to an internet-based world, where there's always going to be some censorious little left-wing Silicon Valley person in between you and your message, that's getting trickier and trickier. Because you can have your message suppressed, and truth helps out a lot. You can have 10 channels out there, and if one of them is telling the truth and the others are saying something differently, people will find that. If you say that's completely gone and you can't say that anymore, or you just got fired from your position, or everything that you like is hate speech and everything that we like is not, that's where really bad things in societies happen. When everybody's saying, hey, it's all the Jews' fault, and anybody's saying the opposite thing. We've seen this replay in every dictatorship and every kind of place like that. The first thing that you do is you not just suppress but squelch alternate thought, and we're approaching that. We're moving in that direction here, which is particularly troublesome to me.
It's scary to me. I always point out Franklin Roosevelt was the first one to go out there and talk directly to the people via his fireside chats. And what had happened if some of the networks had not given him time to talk, which is what's happening today. We always complain about President Trump's tweets, but I often think they're the only things that have kept him ahead of the curve.
Oh, sure. Look, he's been a master at social media. Again, sometimes he shoots himself in the head with it, but let's be really honest. Some of the stuff he said is kind of stupid, and sometimes just politically dumb. I mean, look, the latest thing coming about that old man was an unforced error. I don't care if he was part of Antifa. When cops push a 75-year-old man on the back and bleed, and they're all walking by him, it's like it's bad politics to just trash the guy, even if, right?
Yes.
But that said, Trump has used social media better than any presidential candidate in the history that we've had so far. I mean, those rallies that we're seeing. How do you think that 100,000 people show up in Dayton? That's because he's been pushing hard and doing a lot of smart things. I've watched a lot of his online media things for years, and he's playing that game smart.
Do you think he can be reelected?
Look, I'd still give him the if I had to put bets on it, I'd put it on him. I know that the polls have kind of hurt him in the recent month or so. It was really kind of more so after the riot thing than after the other. I don't think people are looking right now at look. People are kind of like, hey, everything's screwed up here. I'm wearing a mask when I go outside. I'm afraid to go into the black part of town because I'm white, and that might be illegal tomorrow. So I mean, people are understandably a little bit nervous about their situation, and America isn't as good as it felt 2 months ago, 3 months ago. And I think that's reflecting into these polls. That will be a different, but that right now is saying, I'm tired of Trump. I wish this was better. I wish people weren't rioting. I wish I could go and go to the beach. But we're going to go into a political campaign pretty soon, where you're going to have to make a decision not between Trump and being upset, but between Trump and another guy. And I don't think that people are really focusing on okay, I either get who's going to fix this stuff. It's either going to be Donald Trump or the guy who has a hard time remembering what city he's in.
Well,
that's gonna be...
and that brings up an interesting point. One of the things that Don has said on this program a lot is that Don Mazzella, and I'm starting to get on that train as well, Joe Biden won't be the guy running against Trump.
A lot of smart people are saying that.
Nice to think we're smart.
I wasn't talking about you guys. I was actually talking about other people. But yes, you're in good company there. I mean, look, structurally, they either have to kill him, or they have to convince him not to run. He may die of COVID, and I wouldn't want to stand between Hillary and the nomination. But I think it's going to be hard to go up to a guy and say, and in fairness, look, most of his speeches, he's got most of his marbles together. We get the clips that come out every couple of days, and they're bad, and I think a reasonable person who's not a doctor would say he's slipping. But the only other way is for them to convince him not to run, and so I can't imagine like the powers that be coming in and say, okay, so we don't think you should be the nominee, even though you're winning 10 points in the polls, that right now it's an electoral landslide, that you've been running for president for the past 30 years. We'd like you to, now that you're about ready to now that the nomination is yours and the election's in 4 months, we'd like you to step aside. I know if I'm Joe Biden, if I have one marble left, that marble's telling you to go pound sand. Yes. So, but you never know. You never know.
But Biden has committed himself to a female vice presidential candidate, and they try to force a black. Do you think that has an effect on how people will vote in November? Negatively for him. See, I believe that.
I mean, look, certainly people like me personally found it very pandering when he said, okay, I'm going to pick a woman as vice president. I'm going to pick a woman of color as my first Supreme Court justice. It's kind of like, really? So you've now just eliminated 95% of people from contention to be your Supreme Court nominee. That doesn't really seem like a positive thing to me, but the Democratic Party plays that game. I think that people will be looking at Joe Biden's vice presidential candidate a lot more than they might otherwise if he didn't look like he might die tomorrow. But B, people vote for president. Geraldine Ferraro lost Catholic women in Queens when she ran against Ronald Reagan as the vice presidential candidate. So I still think that people look at the presidential candidate more than others. So he'll either pick somebody who's for an important state, which we've seen happen in the past years, where it's like, wow, I need Florida. I'm going to get a popular Florida governor, and I'll lock that up, right? I mean, we've seen that happen. And when you look at the kind of the way the map's played, most states don't count. I mean, New York doesn't matter what happens there. California doesn't matter what happens there. Texas probably doesn't matter what happens there. So I've just zapped off 20% of the country, probably 20% of the country with those. So sometimes they pick for an election, sometimes or for an electoral win in a particular region. Other times they do it just to, you know, I think with all the black stuff, I mean, Jesus, you know, I wouldn't be shocked if Biden gets rid of his wife and marries a black woman. I mean, you know, when people are getting on their knees, you know, and personally, I think that will come back to haunt him. That, you know, the same day that they were bitching that the president held up a Bible and used that as a stunt in front of a church, the very same day Joe Biden was on his knee with a bunch of black preachers and other types behind him in a church looking at the camera. You know, you don't have to be a racist to say, why is my presidential candidate on his knee? And no, it wasn't like they were praying, you know, and I know that it's solidarity, but it's also an act of subservience and obsequiousness. Yes. And I know if I'm kind of a middle of the ground white guy in Ohio and I see, wow, people start to riot and he's got the dashiki on and he's on his knees, what the hell?
Well, Ken, I know that we only have you for a limited amount of time here as we wrap up with you. Let's talk about your website and you know, all the different things you're covering over there.
Well, let me tell you what I'm about to launch something new. So I've been in news for 23 years or something like that now. And the news profession's really changed around me. I mean, it went from, hey, let's go out and tell the truth and give balance and do this. And, you know, we might cover more squirrel stories and you might cover more cat stories, but it has gone so much off of the rails. And I believe that I believe that it's vital for half of America to actually get a fair and balanced news coverage. That I'm kind of going the opposite way. We're launching something that we haven't launched. It's launching next week, called the Media Action Network, where it's basically with the goals of, you know, of not just reporting the destruction of the media and watching them become functioning arms of the Democrats, but actually fighting back on it. And that means three things. One is continuing to call out the nonsense when they do that. Continuing to call out the people who are pretending to be objective and hiding behind that veneer of objectivity when in fact they are what they are. So and you know, people getting better at that. The second is there are a lot of victims to this that have no recourse. You know, and sometimes that's Donald Trump, even though he's the only big boy who can take care of himself. But whether it's pulling a guy's 12-year-old tweet and getting him classified as a racist and destroying his life, whether that's putting fake true but fake news stories up, and look, I got slandered by the New York Times, and it's like, you know, $500,000 to get off the table in legal fees on that, and even then, good luck, because the legal things don't. So to defend some of these guys that are getting destroyed daily by a social media and a media. And then the other thing is we need to actively build up the balance of media in America. We need to rip down some of the leftist outlets, expose them for what there are, and build them up. It has to be more than Fox News on TV, some conservative radio, and some internet sites, especially when you look at the way the internet's under assault. So we're going to get think of a Media Matters on steroids on the right, and we're going to take off the gloves here, and literally our logo is of a boxer, and we're going to have to start punching. We're going to have to start punching back because you know what? I'm just tired of bitching about it, and I'm complaining. We're all doing the same thing. And we need to use their own tactics against them, burn some of their literal, figurative houses down, and hit back. So that's next time we talk, I will and I'll get you some info on that as we move forward.
Definitely, I would.
Hey, I'd like to volunteer for that.
You know what? It's everything that we have is going to have somebody be able to do something on their keyboard, and whether that's spread